Should be your friend. Yeah. Well, my friend's home. My friend's home. You won't see me anymore.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to call the Garden Grove City Council meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Councilmember Beard?
Here.
Councilmember Broadwater?
Here.
Councilmember Jones?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Quinn? Mayor Dalton?
Here. Okay, we'll have the invocation by Kingsley Okereke, the Finance Director, and the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Broadwater.
Okay, please stand, join me in prayer. Dear Lord, we ask for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting tonight. Help us to engage in honest and meaningful discussion. Fill us with your grace as we make decisions that affect the citizens of Garden Grove. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Please follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, prior to the start of the City Council meeting, we had a closed session item. There's no reportable action taken. Now we're starting with presentations.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, apparently our community spotlight is not available this evening, so we'll reschedule that.
Okay.
And 3B is a proclamation acknowledging March 30th, 2012 as Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans Day, presented to the Vietnam War Museum Foundation of America. And I think we have a speaker on behalf of the group. If you come forward, General.
Honorable members, I'm General or Dr. McEwen, and I have the privilege of being the president of the Vietnam War Museum Foundation of America, and would like to respond to the city's efforts toward that with these remarks. I wish to thank you, Mayor Dalton, and honorable council members, for being the first Orange County city to formally honor Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans Day with this proclamation. As we know, 40 years ago, our soldiers came home to civil unrest in a country that was in absolute confusion. We're proud to stand unified with you and finally say to them, welcome home. And I may add that I have never seen any city in Orange County that has done so much to welcome them home. We would like to take a moment to also thank you for the support of the Vietnam War Museum of America Foundation from its inception as a Blue Ribbon Committee in 2009 to its nonprofit formation in 2011. We are especially grateful to the city's progressive leadership and the unwavering patriotism exemplified at the Moving Wall last October as we paid homage to Vietnam veterans who served our country without any reserve. Moving forward, it is our hope that the city will continue to foster our efforts in the establishment of a permanent memorial, a museum in Garden Grove, which will honor all of those in the Vietnam War who sacrificed their liberties, their lives, so that we could enjoy ours today. And we wish to thank you. I wish to add personally that I have been involved in veterans things modestly in many places, including building several monuments here in Orange County. But I want to say that the employees of this city have done more in terms of effort and in order of production of any place I have been. And I want to specifically commend Kim, who's your Director of Community Services, James Eggert, the City Attorney, Elaine, who works with Kim and the community services, and Judy, who is the bookkeeper, and the man, whose name escapes me, that does the public relations and video and graphic presentations. But their efforts have been absolutely superb. And I want to be sure that they're commended, because it is only through their efforts that people become generals or mayors or people in leadership. It is their efforts that really make things work. And this city needs to be commended for all the things that I remarked here and for all the people that have helped us. Thank you.
Thank you. General? General, I'd like to present the proclamation to you.
Well, stagger back up there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very beautiful.
General is a photographer who'd like to.
Yes.
Well, that's what I should. Okay, all right.
Kill two birds with one stone.
1, 2, 3. And now a little more. 1, 2, 3.
This proclamation from the city, which we gratefully accept, shows the dedication of this city to making it a center for the nation for the recognition of the Vietnam veterans. We will have a building, we will have a museum, we will have something that will continue to grow, and I think will be on a basis that the Smithsonian and other museums will recognize and appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'll open oral communications for the council and the successor agency. Peggy Bergen.
Good evening, everyone, and before I get to the end, I guess I'll say Happy St. Patrick's Day now, because that's coming up very, very quickly. I see somebody has a tie that's very appropriate. Thank you very much. Well, I have a few issues. I basically always have. So the first one was he answered the questions, and when I read the staff report on the Vietnam Veterans Day recognition, that answered all my questions on that, so that was very nice. But basically, consent items on the, I guess it would be the successor agency now. The award to J&G Industries, which is a company for asbestos testing and abatement. It is out of Westminster, which is very nice. That's an Orange County company, so therefore workers for that probably come from right in our own general vicinity. But I was kind of concerned that this is going out for no bid. Now, I read the report, and it said because it was broken into it and it was vandalized. But and it can now no longer be secured, some of the properties. I just was kind of concerned that, hasn't anyone heard of wood to just block up those holes in the wall so people can't get in, and still give it time to go out for bid? I do know you're using a company that you used for the Wolf project, so therefore you've already kind of gone through them and checked out all their references and made sure they do what they say they do. But I still find it's kind of unusual that you're putting something out, even though it is only for supposedly $45,000. But my question to be is $45,000 to tear down and remediate 4 separate lots. And what happens if asbestos is found in those and the procedure becomes much more complicated and involved than they first anticipate, because all 4 of those properties were built right when asbestos was used for anything, insulation in the walls and that. So $45,000 could be quite a low estimate, and is that company willing to accept that even if they have to work longer than they anticipated? Now, the second issue was on the council consent item 6B, which is the Twin Lakes approval of plans for the Orange County Flood District's Haster Retarding Basin. Basically, most of us that live around it call it Twin Lakes Park. Well, that's going to be closed in another few months for basically over 18 months. Well, I'm just kind of concerned because I was reading the staff report, and it says in it, Twin Lakes Flood Control filling a portion of the retarding basin for a new grass turf area, reconstruction of the basin perimeter multi-use park, and replacement of picnic tables and benches affected during construction. But there's no mention in the report of the massive tree removal to do all this, that they're planning on increasing the parking, thereby taking away some of the old grassy area and some of the older trees, and soccer fields. That's going to take away the free space for all the people that live in rental apartments in that area and the trailer parks across the street. Where are these people going to go if there's assigned soccer playing? But I find that there's a lot of things that weren't really looked at very closely in that, as far as I can say. The open bidding starts March 21st. The contract will be awarded about 5 weeks later on May 1st. The construction begins June of the same year, 2012, and the construction is supposedly ending roughly November of 2013. But it almost appears to me that whoever gets awarded the contract is almost determined beforehand, because if some unknown company won the bid, how could they get up and running in as little as 4 to 5 weeks? They need manpower, earth-moving trucks, asbestos abatement on the 2 existing pump houses, because I can almost guarantee there'll be something like asbestos or something as dangerous in those 2 buildings, because they are always, a pump house has to have insulation in it. So it seems to me that there's a lot of things not issued in that, and it's just a blanket consent item. It's nothing that would have to be discussed at City Council at all. So some of these consent items are getting to be a little bit more tricky than just, yeah, we're going to do it. Because there's a lot of issues there, and I know we went through Twin Lakes Park about 1.5 years ago with a lot of complaints. So anyways, well, happy St. Patrick's Day, and you're lucky I don't have to hit the next 2. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Verla Lambert.
Good evening, council and staff. I'm here this evening to follow up on the meeting on February the 14th on the water and sewer rates. I want to read a little bit from our own Garden Grove Journal. In Stanton, Mayor Carol Warden told California Public Utility Commission Stanton hosted 2 CPUC's public participation hearings Friday, March the 2nd. Several county officials and almost 40 Orange County residents spoke against the rates. The people in this area are going through some hard times, said Senator Lou Carrera, adding that unemployment in central Orange County is over 15%. And the district includes Stanton, much of Garden Grove, and part of Westminster. Now, this company is different than the company that we worked with, I understood. But I don't understand why we couldn't also meet with the California Public Utility Commission also. Last week on the oral communication, George had mentioned perception meant a lot. I mean, we have to put forth an effort. And I know that You ask your waterman about negotiations. He says there's no negotiations because we're obligated as a city. Well, you're also obligated to your voters, and I'm sure that even Lou would be glad to have intervened here also. Thank you.
Thank you. Charles Mitchell.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and staff. We're all human. That means we have the ability to make our own decisions. It also means we are capable of making our own mistakes. Sometimes mistakes are made in Washington that affect hundreds of millions of people. Sometimes mistakes are made in Sacramento that affect cities and counties throughout the state. Cities also make mistakes, such as turning an entire city into redevelopment. Our city made the mistake of not enforcing the rules in a temporary trailer park. Now we are paying for that mistake with relocation money. The city is looking for volunteers to judge our city's finer homes. However, we have lost the services of many volunteers that helped inspect our not-so-pretty homes for code violations. Was that a mistake? Unfortunately, even when mistakes are made at the highest levels, there's no responsibility. No one is willing to admit to a mistake. Instead, they make excuses and try to cover up or spin the truth. Recently, I submitted some paperwork to the mayor and the chief of police. There is probably only a handful of people aware that I made a mistake in the chief's name. It was my mistake, and Chief Rainey, please accept my apology. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'll close oral communications, and we will go to the successor agency.
I'd like to open the March 13th session of the Garden Grove Successor Agency. Would you like to call roll?
Sure. Member Broadwater?
Here.
Member Dalton?
Here.
Member Wynn? Vice Chair Beard?
Here.
Chair Jones?
Here. Okay, consent items. We have 2 consent items.
Move it.
Second.
Call to vote.
Motion received, 4 yes votes.
We have no public hearings, no items for consideration. Any matters from agency members? Seeing none, we're adjourned.
Okay, I'll reconvene the council and let the record show that the same members at the start of the meeting are still here, and we'll go to consent items.
Mr. Mayor, it's recommended that items 6A through 6J be acted on simultaneously unless a separate discussion or action is requested by a council member.
Move the balance.
Second.
I have a motion, a second, call for the vote.
Motion received, 4 yes votes.
Okay, public hearings.
Mr. Mayor, your public hearing tonight is to consider an amendment to the mixed-use zoning regulations and development standards and the changing the zoning map to be consistent with the city's general plan. And Lee Marino is here to give a staff report on this item.
Okay, and just to let you know, I'm conflicted with this. I live in this area, so I'm going to recuse myself.
We don't have the mayor pro tem here. Would someone like to?
I'll take it.
Very well.
Okay, are we going to get a staff report?
Yes, you are. Thank you, Councilman Jones and council members. The item before you tonight is a request for City Council consideration for the adoption and implementation of mixed-use zoning regulations and development standards, along with changes to the zoning map to achieve consistency with the city's general plan. In September of 2011, the City Council considered a general plan amendment and Code Amendment A-16011 and Zone Change Amendment Number A-16111 for adoption and implementation of mixed-use regulations and development standards, along with focused amendments to the general plan policy map and changes to the zoning map to achieve consistency with the city's general plan. At that meeting, City Council adopted a negative declaration for the entire project and approved the general plan amendment, along with approving the first reading of Code Amendment A-16011 and Amendment A-16111. Along with this, it was also decided to delete properties along Valley View Street and Chapman Avenue from the proposed mixed-use neighborhood mixed-use zone. With the deletion of these properties, it was since then, with the deletion of the properties, it was determined that the City Council should reconsider the adoption and implementation of the mixed-use regulations with changes to the zoning map. Along with that, staff reviewed other areas to be incorporated into the proposed neighborhood mixed-use zone and determined that due to size, configuration, and multiple property owners, the properties that are located along the east side of Brookhurst, south of Chapman Avenue, should also be removed for consideration at this time. Therefore, a new ordinance has been prepared for City Council consideration, removing the properties along Valley View and Chapman Avenue, as well as the properties on the east side of Brookhurst, south of Chapman, from the neighborhood mixed-use zone. All other areas that were originally proposed remain the same. With that, it is recommended that City Council introduce and conduct the first reading of an ordinance entitled, An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove approving Amendment Number A-16011 and Amendment Number A-16111 to implement the Garden Grove General Plan by amending Title IX of the Garden Grove Municipal Code to establish new mixed-use zones and corresponding new mixed-use regulations and development standards, and to make corresponding changes to the zoning map and existing definitions and sign standards. That would conclude staff's report, and staff is here along with our consultant, Laura Stetson from Hogle, Ireland, that can answer any questions you might have.
Any questions of staff?
Are we going to need a supermajority on this?
No, it'll be a three votes are necessary.
Why are 3 votes necessary?
3 votes are necessary because it's an ordinance you're considering this evening, and an ordinance requires 3 votes. Affirmative votes.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Gentlemen?
Move approval.
Second.
Call the vote.
Motion received, 3 yes votes.
The mayor know to come back in. He probably thought it was going to be a while. Go ahead. You're on a roll.
You seriously want to keep going? Okay. You kept looking, so.
Okay, I'm sure the record's shown that I've returned. And item 8?
9A.
9.
I'm sorry, 90.
Items for consideration.
Mr. Mayor, 9A is an agreement with II Fuels to provide fuel for city vehicles and equipment, and Phil Carter is here to give a staff report on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Fertal. Mr. Mayor and members of the council, tonight council is being asked to award a contract to II Fuels for the purchase of fuel for city vehicles and equipment. The current contract will expire shortly, and a new contract is required. In an effort to obtain the best possible pricing, staff reviewed fuel contracts from several cities throughout Orange County and concluded that the results of the City of Huntington Beach public bidding program meets our requirements. Staff recommends adopting the results of the City of Huntington Beach fuel contract with II Fuels for the purchase of fuel. It is recommended that City Council adopt the results of the City of Huntington Beach bid 070719, approve the attached agreement with II Fuels, Inc. in the amount of $3,600,000 for 3 years, with an option to extend for an additional 2 years at the cost of $1.2 million per option year, for a total of $6 million over 5 years for the purchase of fuel, and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement on behalf of the city and make minor modifications as necessary. This concludes staff's report. At this time, I'll be happy to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Have motion second, call for the vote.
Motion received, 4 yes votes.
Ordinances for second reading.
Mr. Mayor, item 10A is ordinance number 2812 for second reading, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove adopting a negative declaration and approving zone change amendment number A16312. We changed the zoning from R3 multifamily residential to R16 single-family residential with a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet.
Okay, any questions? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Have motion second, call for the vote.
Motion received, 4 yes votes.
10B.
10B is ordinance for second reading, number 2813, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove amending Title II of the Garden Grove Municipal Code to remove obsolete references to conform references to current city organization and practices, to make consistent with recent changes in state and federal laws, and to make other non-substantive changes.
Question, is this the last one? This is it?
it.
Finale? Congratulations.
We're going to have cake.
Good job. No, as a former city clerk, I know it's a lot of labor intensive, so good job.
Thanks.
Well done, and do it again in 42 years.
Then you'll probably want to make a motion.
So moved. Move for approval.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second, call for the vote.
Motion received, 4 yes votes.
Okay, matters, Mr. Broadwater.
Well, I guess the St. Patrick's Day is coming up, looking at your tie, and I understand you bought that in Ireland. Did they make you pay a tax on it when you came back, or?
They probably did.
Anyway, happy St. Patrick's Day. Did you know that St. Patrick was an Englishman?
You know, Irish people would probably say something like, them's fighting words, but I don't want to go there, believe me. I don't want to go there. Okay, anything else?
No, that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
I have nothing to add.
Mr.
Happy St. Patty's Day. I think our family will be celebrating, as we do every year, watching Darby O'Gill and Little People. That's our tradition at home. And, spring's in the air, so the Little League has started for the Little Leaguers. We were just at opening day. Yeah, a couple weeks ago, so it's all started. And good luck to all the baseball players out there. Have fun. Remember, teamwork, sportsmanship, and doing your best, but have fun. And just want to make mention of the event we were at prior to here, the George Allen Traffic Center. It was a very moving and touching memorial to a great man. And I like what the Public Works Director said. It was where this new system is where technology meets customer service. So when the streets and traffic is flowing, there are people behind the scenes making it move along, technologically speaking. So it's a great center. It's in City Hall. If you have a chance, stop by and look at it. So with that, happy St. Patty's Day again.
Thank you. As Chris just mentioned, the Little League teams are starting to play again, and the basketball teams are just wrapping up. They're just finishing their season. And, I don't think we say it enough, and I don't think that we let people know that Garden Grove has some of the greatest sports events for kids, for teaching them all the good things and the right things, and basketball, and we have everything that you could have. And it's just fun to go out and watch the kids. I mean, whether your kids or not, just to see, I mean, they're probably about 4 years old, starting a little bit of Little League, and also about 4 or 5 starting basketball. And you watch these kids, and like I've watched some of them over the years, and they'll start out, they can run and take 2 steps and dribble once and then run and all these things. And then the next season, they start teaching them a little bit more how the rules are, but just getting familiar. And I think our staff, Kim and all of her people, and we just don't say thank you enough. So from me to them, thank you. And I will say this, I have a couple of grandkids that are playing, and I've been to the sports arena, Garden Grove, I think 8 or 10 times in the last month or so. And every time I go out there, I see our staff out there. And I said, I hope we're not paying you by the hour. I'm just joking. But they're there, and there's a lot of volunteers, there's a lot of part-time people, and they are great. That's one of the things that does make our sports program the best in the area, if not the state. And so to each and every one of them, thank you very much for what you do. And we will, by the way, on St. Patrick's Day, my tradition has always been, since I was a kid, corned beef and cabbage. And Sandy cooks it almost as good as my mother did. But probably, hopefully she's not watching the meeting. No, she does it as well as my mother did. So corned beef and cabbage for everybody. Steve's house. I'll give you the address later. Okay, we'll adjourn the meeting, and the next regular meeting of the council will be Tuesday, March 27th at 5:30 p.m. here in the council chambers. Thank you very much.